A little background about myself. I am not the person to think every noise in the middle of the night is a ghost, and I don't have an overactive imagination like that. I am also a total amateur when it comes to what type of paranormal stuff is out there. But I grew up Christian in a house that had activity throughout my childhood by a non-threatening presence. I have never felt uncomfortable and targeted like I do now since moving into our new apartment. Me and my girlfriend and our roommates moved in 9 months ago, and right away we had 10 to 15 experiences in the first few months. Things slowed down after we saged, and my mom always prayed over our dwelling and doorways. My mom passed away a month ago, and since then the activity has ramped up to higher levels than it was when we first moved in. It's gotten to the point that I'm just looking for any input as to what may be happening here and how to get rid of it, because we're going through enough as it is and we can't even get a good night's sleep at this point. When we first moved in, my girlfriend and I were repeatedly awoken around 4 a.m. from noises, creaks, and scratches coming from the corner of our room that borders our balcony and outside. I would hear whispered conversations coming from that corner in the middle of the night. When I was playing video games there, I could hear it even with my headset on, and it was completely inaudible from anywhere else inside, outside of our apartment. We would also hear a lot of noises coming from our closet, which is where I personally feel the most uneasy. This is where it gets to be too obvious to ignore. After multiple nights of being woken up around 4 is when we told my mom. The following day at 4:30 p.m. I was washing dishes, and I see our front door slowly creep open and stayed cracked for 3 seconds before closing. I ran right after whoever I just tried to get in, and nothing. Mind you, we live in the apartment with a long hallway and always hear when people are walking down the hall. Nobody there. Next day, I was telling my roommates about what happened, and at the same moment, at 4:30 p.m. again, our front door knob slowly turned open, but our deadbolt was locked, and the door jiggled a few times loudly. I sprinted with all of my being to see if there was someone in the hallway this time, and I made it out the door within seconds, and there was no body. I would have heard someone sprinting to get out of eyesight by the time I got there. Well, turns out my mom let me know she prayed over all of our doorways that no spirits or unwanted beings could enter our living space. I think whatever was bothering us got expelled and was trying to get back in. Fast forward 7 months. Things have been quiet for the most part. My mother's health declined and we had to go down to be with her. She passed while we were there, and since then the activity has been through the roof. I don't know if it's the grief or what, but we really have bad energy around us. This is what has gone down since coming back to the apartment 2 weeks ago. 1, a loud scratch at the door right when my girlfriend turned the light out for bed, which sounded like our dog. Both our dogs and I were not back at this point. She saw a big shadow at the door and her legs went numb. 2, knocks and creaks coming nightly from the same corner as when we first moved in. 3, voices while showering and feeling a dark shadow present right behind us when we are near our closet. 4, this one is why I'm making this whole post to begin with. I work from home, and on Wednesdays when I get off work, there was a perfect oval pile of these white flaky chips sitting on top of my dresser on some stickers I had placed there the night before. They were also scattered at the doorway entering our room. These were very thin, 1 to 2 centimeter big flakes of what looked like paint chips. They broke easy and reminded me of a 3D printer plastic texture-wise. When we threw it away, there is no explanation as to how that perfect pile of unknown flakes appeared there, while I was literally feet away working all day. It's not even like there is any paint or anything missing in our room. Number 5. This brings us to last night. Last night we saged the living hell out of our apartment and prayed over all the doorways. We even put a line of kosher salt at our front door. I watched 3 seasons of Supernatural. After having done that, we felt much better. that it was until my girl was woken up at 2 a.m. to knocks and creaks and other noises coming from the same corner again. I wish I had photo-video evidence, but I wasn't even planning on looking for help. If it helps, I live in Arizona on Old Resland. Ask me anything. As I write this today, it is in the hope that my experience will help someone. I must admit that my story is unusual, and I know most of you won't believe it, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror, knowing I did everything in my power to save innocent people. To make sense, I guess I should start from the beginning, the moment I first met Amiko. The first time I met her was outside my front door, a few days before I had posted an ad on Craigslist to find a roommate. I didn't enjoy sharing my living space, but I'm a student and my family can't afford to help me pay for my tuition or rent. So I had to be creative to make and save money. My boyfriend had just broken up with me and I needed someone to pay his half of the rent. My apartment was situated in Paris, had 2 bedrooms, and was close to transportation and several shops. Not long after posting the ad, my inbox was almost full of all these emails I received. To be honest, I was not intending to open them all. I did not want to spend hours or even days going through each message. So, to start with, I opted for a first-come, first-serve approach, which was not effective. I don't know if people were lazy or because the offer was so interesting, but all the emails I had opened were the same. Hey, I just saw your ad on Craigslist, and I'm interested. Looking forward to hearing from you. I quickly got bored reading, almost the same thing over and over. So, I went to the kitchen to grab some snacks and coffee to help me get through this boring task. When I sat back in front of my laptop, I noticed that an email had just arrived, and the address directly caught my attention. Amiko Shibata Ashanet. It was not an address I had seen before, but the name of the person let me know that the sender was a Japanese woman. It made me even more eager to open the email. You see, since my childhood, I was obsessed with everything that had to do with Japan. Japanese history, culture, and gastronomy. Cultural and gastronomy were always a passion of mine, so much that I was slowly learning the language, intending to travel to Japan in the future and finally visit the country that I love dearly without even setting foot in it. I quickly clicked on the email, hoping to not be disappointed by its contents. I was not. The email in front of me was long but well written, and reading it, I learned about Amiko. She was 24, just a little bit older than me. She came to Paris so she could go to the art school in the country that, for her, represented art the best. That made me smile to know she was interested in my country, and I was in hers. And to top it all, she had added some pictures of her that she took during several trips in different regions of Japan. I was astonished by her beauty. She was tall, her eyes and smile were beautiful. She seemed genuinely nice. But what caught my attention was her hair. It was breathtaking. It was dark, thick, and fell down to her upper thighs. In one picture, she was in the middle of a forest, the rust color of the trees and leaves flying around her left no doubt about the season, and her hair flowed in a way that seemed to have a mind of its own. When I was done reading her email and looking at the pictures over and over, I just wanted to know more about her. Who knew? Become good friends who share common interest. I applied with a time and date for her to come and visit my apartment, and, to my great pleasure, she agreed to it. The day finally arrived when I opened my door. I was surprised to see that she was even more beautiful than in the pictures, and she seemed even more nicer. I greeted her with a big smile, and we started to chat as if we had known each other for years. She spoke French almost fluently, and her accent only added to her charm. After that, I gave her a tour of the apartment. She loved it, and that's how Emiko and I became roommates. It's been a year since then. Just as I suspected, our friendship only grew during the time. Emiko was easygoing and a delight to live with. She did her share of the chores. She was discreet, and the cherry on the cake was that she didn't mind spending hours talking about Japan and the little village she came from in the region of Nagano. But what I enjoyed the most were all the delicious meals she cooked for us every day. She loved to cook, but strangely she ate like a bird. I often teased her about it, saying that her appetite was as small as her mouth, and having a great sense of humor, she always laughed. Before saying that, by my logic, my big mouth was no doubt the reason I ate that much. I guess that by now, you are wondering what I've just told you has to do with the warning I said I was going to give you. Well, once you hear the rest, everything will fall into place. Because as great as Emiko was, there was always something that felt weird to me. She was incapable of keeping a relationship. Every few weeks, she brought home a new guy. And that was even weirder, was that she seemed happy with them, and they seemed completely mesmerized by her. I could not understand why she broke up with each guy so quickly and so suddenly. At first, every time she broke up, I would ask her why. She always gave me the same answer, that simply did not work out. Each time, she seemed so uncomfortable that I just stopped asking. A while afterwards, I discovered exactly why none of her relationship lasted. Everything happened during summer break. As usual, I decided to go back to my hometown and spent the holidays with my family. I talked to Emiko about my plan, and she seemed sad to see me go, but she quickly smiled and joked about how it would allow her to paint half naked in the living room while listening to loud classical music. I left and I had a wonderful time with my family, but during my stay, I felt guilty leaving Emiko all by herself, as I knew I was her only friend. So I decided to surprise her and go back to our place on the afternoon of December 31st, just in time for New Year's Eve. When I arrived home, I called her name, but she wasn't there. I had assumed she'd gone shopping and would spend the evening, went out to buy some groceries to cook one of her lovely meals. As I entered the living room, I saw that Emiko kept her word. Her paintings were drying, and they were all painting of her exes. At first, I found that strange, but we all have different ways of getting over exes, right? After contemplating her beautiful work, I went to my room to unpack while waiting for her to come back, and as I was finishing, I heard the elevator stopped at our floor. Without thinking twice, I ran to Emiko's bedroom and hid under her bed so I could scare her and make the surprise even more memorable. I heard her enter the apartment and close the door behind her. I knew she had always took off her shoes first before going to her room to put her jacket inside her wardrobe, and it would be the perfect moment for me to suddenly jump out from a hiding place. As I was getting ready to jump out, I saw Emiko, in the reflection of her standing mirror next to her bed, enter the room with a guy, kissing him passionately. It was Eric, the same Emiko was dating before I left. I completely froze when I saw them. I did not know what to do. If I just popped from underneath the bed, they'd think I was crazy. But if I waited and got caught after they started to do God knows what, they'd think I was a freak. As a million scenarios went through my head, I kept looking from time to time in the mirror, trying to find a way to get out of there without being seen. But unfortunately, there was none. I had to be brave and take responsibility for my childish attempt to scare Emiko, even if it meant I would look like a complete fool in front of her and her boyfriend. As I was gathering the courage to move, I checked the mirror one last time. But something strange caught my attention. Emiko and Eric were still kissing. Eric had his hands on her lips, and Emiko had hers around his neck, with her back to the mirror. but strangely her hair was moving, as if someone was combing through it. I could not wrap my mind around it. Was it possible? They were both already busy holding each other. I kept looking at the mirror, squinting, and I nearly yelled when I understood what was going on with her hair. It was moving on its own, and as it parted on either side over her shoulders, it unveiled a mouth on her scalp, a huge mouth filled with sharp, crooked teeth and a thin, pointed tongue. Petrified by what I was witnessing, I did not move when her hair wrapped itself around Eric's neck and his wrist before tightening around it. The poor guy did not even have time to do anything, not even scream as Emiko's hair strangled him. He faced the mirror and I saw his scared, confused face before the last glimmer of life completely disappeared from his eyes. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep my cries inside, to avoid being seen. But what I saw next was so chilling I doubt that I would have been able to make any sound. Emiko's hair just lifted Eric's body in the air, and her second mouth opened so wide it looked like someone had struck her on the back of her head with a hatchet, splitting it in two. Her hair started to put Eric's head inside the mouth. As it chewed away with a disgusting wet sound, it fed him in, bit by bit, until Eric's corpse disappeared completely. After that, the mouth simply closed, and Emiko's hair fell back into place, leaving no trace of the horror it hid. I stayed motionlessly, shocked, but also petrified that I could meet the same end if I was discovered. As my body was shook still, Emiko turned around, tears running down her cheeks, before she left the room and closed the door behind her. Still hidden, I stayed under the bed, praying she wouldn't go to my room and to discover that I came back early from my trip. Minutes felt like hours, and my heart thudding, and my mind replayed Eric's death time and again. I heard the front door open and close. Emiko was not in the apartment anymore. I left her bedroom. As quickly as I could, I went to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. I knew she could come back any minute, and I had to act as if nothing happened. After I could breathe normal again, I went to the living room and waited for her to come back. What I really wanted, though, was to get out of there and never come back. When she came back, she seemed genuinely happy to see me, but she asked me several times how long I'd been home. Of course I lied. I don't know how I did it, but I managed to see the new year in with her, before telling her I was tired and was going to my room. I spent the entire night searching the internet looking for someone with the same experience as mine. After the research, I think I know what Emiko is. I think she is a Fudakuchi Ana. According to the one websites I visited, a Fudakuchi Ana is a beautiful woman who has a tiny mouth and an appetite just as small. But at the back of her head, she has a huge second mouth hidden under her hair. Although she appears to eat little to no food, the mouth on the back of her head is always hungry. It is said that the second mouth also has a mind of its own and whispers horrible things to the woman. It threatens her, harasses her, and demands food frequently. It can screech and cause the poor woman afflicted with the curse an unbearable amount of pain until it is fed. The mouth can also control her hair and make it wrap around the food before shoveling it inside its mouth. The mouth helps itself to its desired meal, and it eats astronomical amount of food. After reading that, I remember that Emiko was crying after her second mouth ate Eric. Everything was clear. Emiko had to find food for the monstrosity she had at the back of her head if she did not want to be persecuted and tortured by it. Now I understand. I felt pity, not fear, for Emiko. I knew why she was always so kind and joyful. She was trying to compensate for the horrible things that had to do from the monster that was using her body, and I could not decently abandon her to her misery. I was her only friend, and I loved her. If she really wanted to hurt me, she would have done it now. She would have done it by now. And she seemed to attack only men, even if I cannot be completely sure about that. Anyway, as I said, It is not me I am worried about, but you, because Amiko is planning a trip to visit several countries around the world during the summer vacation. So be careful. If you see a young and beautiful Japanese woman with luscious long hair and a small appetite, do not engage with her. Because, as nice and thoughtful as she is, you won't know before it's too late that she is a Fudakuchiana. Alright, that story was really good. I'm sorry if I did not pronounce the Fudakuchiana the correct way, but this one was by the author and fellow narrator, MademoiselleMcCreepsta. She has a YouTube channel, and I will put her link down below. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and thank you to Swamp Dweller for reading with me during this collab. He is amazing, and I will have all of his socials down below. Until next time, remember, it's scary out there.
A ghost cat in the cabinet. In the middle of last year, my girlfriend's mother salvaged a set of cabinets that someone on the block was throwing away. They're in good condition, no problems or blemishes, and look like they may have been a part of an entertainment center set. A month into the cabinet being there, I would notice the shadow of a cat in the same room as the cabinets. My girlfriend has a cat, but she's chubby and obvious. The apparition is thinner and makes no sound. I've seen them jump off the couch and strut towards the cabinets before leaving my peripheral vision and then disappearing. My girlfriend has seen the cat more than I have, sitting on top of the cabinet, sitting on the couch, and napping in several places. The cat isn't hostile. It gets along really well with the cat that's already present, and they sit together in the cabinet shelves and nap. We've come to the conclusion that a cat who loved those cabinets passed away in them and is still part of them. Moving home. So, I recently lost my father to cancer after a lengthy courageous battle with a god-awful illness. I took care of my dad in his final weeks, and as a healthcare worker seemed to make sense, although in hindsight, I became a sort of a private duty nurse and less a son. I wish I had more moments that I wasn't in caregiver mode, but my dad was able to die at home, and I will always be grateful that I could give him that. After he died, I helped dress and bathe him and provide care and wrapped him up in his favorite blanket before the funeral home folks zipped up the bag and carried him away. I have to live with those memories, seeing my dad pass in my childhood bedroom, a room that my siblings and myself have shared and rotated in and out as we became adults and moved back for various reasons and then moved out. It was my room when I was attending nursing school and a bit later in life, and then my sister's after moving back, resulting from a tumultuous divorce with an abusive husband. It was my sister's room up until she died in that room after suffering a major stroke. The room has many ghosts and memories, and when I enter the room, I am flooded with moments, like pictures from an old Polaroid of happier times, and then of the tragedies the room has been a witness to. I decided that I need to move back to help care for my mom, and in doing this, sacrificing some of my independent life to care for a woman who cared for me for many years and sacrificed for me. So, the room awaits and beckons, and I am frankly terrified. A new coat of paint and light fixtures, a new room, right? But here I sleep, in the spot where my father and sister both died, and it makes me uneasy. The other issue is, the house is haunted. The upstairs, where once was a bedroom, has sat empty, and when I had slept there, I was awoken by night terrors that repeatedly make me wake up during the night. I would awake terrified and something coming at me, then fall asleep only to have this repeat over and over again. The sounds of someone climbing the stairs or the shadows across the room that seemed to linger and wait for my sleep. The cold chill down my spine I felt in the basement that I could duplicate just by walking through one spot. The feeling of being watched, and I thought I was just paranoid, but once I moved out, I left those experiences behind. I visit the home often and almost never sleep over because at night the house changes. So I not only sacrifice the independence I have now living in my own home, but I return to a home that makes me uneasy and haunted my dreams. What was there waiting for me? Waiting for me to return?